Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kelly Richardson, and I am the president for the CCIM Washington State chapter for 2021. I want to welcome everyone to April's webinar. We have a great speaker today. He's going to tell us all about the economy and what is in store. So looking forward to that. Right now, I'd like to thank our sponsors. Our Power Partner sponsors, we have the Benaroya Company, Lisa Goodman and Larry Benaroya, office space as well as industrial. IBA, Kurt Meyer, mergers and acquisitions. Ameriprise, Kevin O'Keefe, he's an asset manager, so diversifying your wealth, he specializes in. Rob Sargent with Sargent Legal, all things real estate law, please see Rob. And Stewart Title, Kelsey, and we're lucky enough to have one of the premier economists from Stewart Title today. I want to thank our annual sponsors as well. Triple J Properties, John Jones creates value in underperforming assets. So they are a new sponsor and they're seeking medical and dental properties in Washington State. So please contact them if you have assets, as well as he's also seeking investors, their syndication. The Shop is also a new sponsor. It's a private social club where car and motorcycle enthusiasts of all levels come to build their passion. They also have the Derby, which is an amazing restaurant, so check them out. And then BII, Rachel Hanley, their interior design, space planning, design solutions with quality office furniture for any commercial workspace. And we also have Lee Wang with Bank of America, and I want to thank all of our new sponsors. In addition, we have McConkey Development, Fred McConkey, a past president, myself, Kelly Richardson with Rowley Properties, and Dirtfish, Molly Schaefer. Check out Dirtfish. They are the only rally car racing school in the Western United States. And Blue Ink, Chris Erdman, he's got a commercial and residential brokerage in Bellingham. And Great Earth Realty, Larry Yu. Larry is our president-elect for 2022. So thank you all to our sponsors. In addition, our media partner sponsor is the Daily Journal of Commerce, and our in-kind sponsor is BDP Design, Kelly Beckley, for all things marketing. I'd like to talk a little bit about our upcoming events. Every Wednesday from 4:30 to 5:30, we have our asset class consultation clinic. These are free. Please check them out. It's a great opportunity to get updates on various asset classes. This afternoon, we'll have Candace Chevalier. She's doing multifamily, and these are, again, free at no cost. You can go to our website at CCIM-WA.com for more information. And then you can see every week we have a different clinic. So please check them out. They're very interesting. It's also a great way to network too. In addition, we will be having the CCIM spring meetings next week, so we will not have an asset class consultation clinic, but the following week we will resume as scheduled. Save the date. We have the Site to Do Business training webinar, which will go from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m., and that is May 11th. The cost is a discounted rate as a Washington State chapter member at $25 and $45 for non-members. Really good value. You'll learn a lot about how this can help your business and make more money. It's a great, great tool. So check that out, and details will be on our website, CCIM-WA.com. Now, the Institute is offering the CI 101 and 104 classes in an online condensed format. So please visit our chapter website for that. In addition, we have a program in May. Wanted to talk a little bit about this, and this will be May 12th from noon to 1. And this is going to be an asset class update. So retail, office, industrial, and multifamily. So you'll get what's happening in May exactly. We've spent a lot of time learning the ins and outs of all of the asset classes, and you're going to be able to hear it all in May. So please check that out. And again, check out our website. And now again, here's our website. You'll also be able to go on there for the 101 through 104 classes, and they are on an online condensed format. So please visit our website for that. Wanted to talk a little bit about housekeeping today. If you have questions for our speaker, please submit that in the Q&A forum. We will be addressing questions at the end. You'll also be able to upvote your questions, and that'll help us prioritize what we'll ask Mr. Jones. If you're having technical difficulties, try logging out and logging back in. And we are recording the webinar. It will be available on our website, CCIM-WA.com, later this week. So that will be there for you. Now, we are in for a one-of-a-kind experience today. Dr. Ted Jones is the Chief Economist and Senior Vice President for Stewart Title. Previously, he served as the first Director of Investor Relations for Stewart Information Services Corporation on the New York Stock Exchange for 17 years. He is an exemplary economist. Now, I want to make a disclaimer. He's an Aggie fan.
Whoop, the ring's right here. 12th man, the original 12th man, guys.
He is from Texas A&M. All right, now we can't do much about his taste, but we are looking forward to his talk about the economy and his prognostications as we move forward. Now, Dr. Jones, since you've been to Texas, and this subject is so important in economics, can we hear you pronounce the word OIL?
Oil.
What was that?
Oil.
Oh, okay.
Oil. Okay, got it. Yeah, oil. AHL.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
That's like oil. Yeah, oil. Yeah. And I praise a lot of oil and gas properties. So what can I say? Yeah.
Exactly. And you are also a sheep farmer at heart, correct?
I grew up on a sheep ranch in southwestern Colorado, and hence the bolo tie from New Mexico, old antique Hopi Indian carved turquoise. So yeah, my dad's a sheep rancher. I probably will be one someday too.
Well, ranching is good fun, and I've been there myself. So now Dr. Jones's first appraisal job was this bar in Australia, New Zealand area.
Not the first one, but it was a unique one. Yeah, you have a great memory. I'm impressed.
Well, it wasn't the Taj Mahal, if I recall.
No.
All right. Well, he started out as an appraisal. So as an appraiser. So we're really happy to hear about that. And you are in Anchorage today, correct? So you've been traveling around.
I'm in my hotel room in Anchorage right now. Yes.
Excellent. All right. Well, here is a man who is truly, truly brilliant. We are in for a treat. Welcome, Dr. Jones.
Well, Kelly, thank you very much. My friends call me Ted. Thank you. Please do that. And by the way, I have to say this up front, and I've said this multiple times on national TV and radio and videos. The CCIM is the most powerful professional designation in commercial real estate. It combines a tool set, the experience, and the network. And your network is so critical. And I also have to do one other thing, because I have a really good friend online, Rob Sargent. Rob, here's a shout out for you. And, Rob used to work for us at Stewart with us and not for us. Guys, awesome. What can I say? Rob, greetings. And I remember that great meal we had a couple of years ago in Seattle. Are you ready to run? Not rumble. If you say rumble, it's copywritten. So you ready? Y'all ready? Okay, so here we go. So let's talk real estate, guys. So every year I have to come up with a new speech topic, kind of like 3 months beforehand, so they can do the graphics. By the way, every speech is different. I started at 3 a.m. my time in Anchorage, working on the first presentation, tweaking it, because yours, the presentation's already done. They're all different. And I started thinking about what we did last year. It was old school. This pandemic brought us back to our roots in a way. I think we didn't eat out. We didn't travel. You just went to work, or we didn't go to work, which is pretty amazing because a lot of people used to work at home. We did staycations. And that was the 3 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic to me, which I did the blackboard, which is black, and the white chalk. And I had my graphics people do that. Now, I know some of y'all haven't seen what a blackboard looks like. You've seen whiteboards with the colorful stuff. This is what we used to do. I mean, this is the way we were educated. And I thought our new 3 R's are reinvent. We reinvented the way we do business. We reinvented the way we're using real estate. Recharged. The country as a whole, we had the highest savings rate in history. The country as a whole, every age group, on average, not everyone, paid down their credit card debt, not off. And this reignition that's starting right now is either you become vaccinated or herd immune. All of a sudden, it's picking up on airfares and travel and cruise ships. One of the cruise ship lines last month, hit an all-time record stock high, even though they've been shut down for a year because all the anticipated bookings are coming in. So you talk about what's going on and all this good stuff. I got to get this guy running here. There we go. We did a lot of new personal bests. I love this guy. We all know he has a young kid because he's thrown that card about 10,000 times. That kid picked him up every time, or kids. You never know. Oh, and I don't play golf, but I want to play golf pong. I think that's brilliant. And if he did that on the first shot, that's a new immaculate conception. That's another miracle. And I want to play that game. Oh, and we've reinvented, guys. Now, even people that have become inoculated, vaccinated, they're still worried about being around other people. I've been flying a bunch for the last 12 months, not nearly as much as normal. It's interesting to see even people that have had the vaccines just don't feel comfortable in a packed elevator or a full airplane or a Texas A&M football game. You think about all that kind of stuff. This guy's brilliant. The mop bucket with the wheels, the leaf blower, and the umbrella. Oh, and we did a lot of new crafts this past year. And what can I say? Some of the crafts weren't very good. And so let's talk about 2020. 2020 was the year of the pandemic. We want to leave it behind, but it's not going away, folks. It is not going away. Fauci said last week that he thought kids this summer could go outside as long as they wear masks and socially distance. He also said he thought it'd be 2 years before he can take off masks, assuming there's not another mutation. Guys, this is not done. So I have a depiction of what the pandemic looked like. It started, it erupted, it caught more people than we thought, and it's still here. It's not done yet, and you need to see this. So I decided too, after this one, that 2021 is not the year of the pandemic. I declare and deem it the year of the taco. It's my favorite food. And if y'all aren't going to have tacos tonight, something's wrong with you. In fact, I'm going to go across the street after I finish this thing because I've been up so many hours and go to Taco King in Anchorage and have some tacos. I'm actually telling you the truth on that one. My favorite food. I mean, I've had halibut tacos. You can do pork carnita tacos, you can do fish tacos, you can do shrimp tacos, you can do beef tacos, beef fajita tacos, you can do, my wife makes the best bean tacos. She grew up a ranch in southwestern Colorado. Colorado pinto beans are hard to beat. Any kind of taco is awesome except chicken. Haven't eaten chicken since 1982. There's a reason they call it foul. We'll just leave it at that. And someday, if you buy me a couple beers, I'll tell you that story. And if you may have had lunch, I have not. And if this doesn't make you hungry, there's something wrong with you. I want to tell you this. Those Fresno chilies or that. The other side. And this one, those are blackened shrimp tacos with cabbage slaw with fresh sliced jalapenos on the top. It just doesn't get any better than that, folks. I just want to tell you this right now. Oh, and one of our head of sales in the southeastern United States, Carlos Arroyo, out of Miami, he sent me this one last month. That's a blackened mahi taco. Even a blackened, salmon taco wouldn't be bad. You think about that. But that's where it was taken. The only difference is Your water there is what, 50 degrees, and his water is 80 degrees. There's a big difference here. So, tacos, they've been a big part of real estate for a long time. We commercial people need to get on board with this. Here's a house sale for sale. Okay, it's Houston, Texas, and I live in Texas. $250 in free tacos. Y'all need that sign out front. $1,000 of free tacos when you sign a lease in this building. Now, well, probably illegal in the state of Washington, according to your insurance department. Who knows? It's 100 free tacos with purchase this home. That's in North Dakota. So this taco thing's gone north, and you're north. So y'all need to catch on this one. This one surprised me. Free tacos with purchase this home. That's Pittsburgh. You'd think it's cheesesteak sandwiches, but no, they understand tacos. Oh, and let's just jump into the deep end of the pool. What could possibly go wrong now? We have a vaccine where everything, well, that's where we're at today. We just kind of felt, all right. So here's my intrinsic takeaways from this presentation right now. What we had last year was the highest intrinsic value of housing. Since we spent more time, whether we rented or owned it there, it impacted our quality of life and our lifestyle more than anything ever before. Hence, we had a lot of people that moved up in apartments because they wanted a better apartment to live in or bought a better home. This pandemic accelerated pre-existing trends. Now, one of those is demand for office space. For 20 years, I really need Wi-Fi. I don't need an office space. Mind you, I have a great office in Houston, Texas, in our corporate headquarters at Stewart. But all of a sudden, the rest of y'all realized you didn't need an office space either, and which is kind of ironic for people that sell offices and everything else like that. It accelerated the trend of, migration. And now think about this one. For 50 years, people have been leaving California, Pacific Northwest, Southwest. People for 50 years have been leaving New York and New England and Massachusetts and Connecticut and in Maryland, heading to the Sun Belt and the Southwest. This accelerated that. And we're seeing that. I'll talk about those in a second. And lastly, those y'all that sell retail or used to sell retail, that you're supposed to laugh right there at that one. Guys, we already were selling a lot more, buying a lot more on e-commerce. We bought a lot more. It accelerated that trend. Now, they say if you do the same thing for 66 days in a row on average, you got a new habit. It's autonomous. It's automatic. It just zips out there. We're for almost 400 days in this, folks. So a lot of the changes we've done and what we've done this past year are permanent. One of my acquaintances, not a great friend, but Tillman Fertitta, he's a major user of real estate. He owns the Houston Rockets. He owns Joe's Crab Shack and Morton Steakhouse and Chart House, all this other kind of stuff. McCormick and Schmicks, he bought that. He's actually said that he thinks that after we go back to the new normal, his same store retail sales on restaurants will be about 75% of what they used to be because we're so used to eating at home again. We're not going to eat out as much. Now, normally, if I'm going to talk to y'all about Seattle, we're going to drill down into Boeing. We're going to drill down into trade with the Pacific Rim. No. All that's been trumped, card Trump, not President Trump, by the macro factors, the pandemic, the stimulus, the politics. Oh, and we talk about the politics. You tell me if you know exactly what the new capital gains rate is going to be. We're going to talk about that. So we don't even know the new rules. And lastly, I told you up front that housing had the highest intrinsic value in history. Did you know in the fourth quarter last year, we sold more apartments in the United States of America than any quarter in history? Most people don't realize that. Now, we're not in a recession, and I don't see a recession. And now I can see the economy turn down, but recession is defined as 2 or more consecutive quarters of negative GDP. And we went down in the first quarter last year, 5%. That's on an annualized basis. Second quarter, we were down the largest drop in GDP in the history of the United States, over 31%. Third quarter, we were out. In fact, the largest gain in history. What amazed me, I'd forecast, if you heard me a year ago, I said, I think we'll be down between 10 and 14% in GDP. I had not anticipated how much stimulus, Powell and Mnuchin we're going to throw back across this to keep us solvent. We were only down 3.5%. So what about this coming year, this year that we're in? This is before anyone assumes the $2.25 trillion infrastructure spend, which may not happen. But the 1.9 trillion has already been approved. Oh, in that 1.9 trillion, the pandemic stimulus, 1 out of $10 is stimulus for the pandemic. The other 9 out of 10 are political. Now, I will tell you this. I've been discussing with politics on both parties for 30 years. I've had enough. What I know is they want to get elected and then do whatever they want because they lie to us. Both parties, let's just be honest about that. This is without any of the assumptions of a 2.25 trillion infrastructure bill. I guarantee you, if any one of those rates came into play, you would say, wow. In fact, I think we could have a double dip mutation of the virus. We could shut it down for 6 months again. I don't think we'd go into recession because I think between the House, the Senate, and the president, they would throw so much money behind this that we wouldn't see a negative GDP. Now, I don't know if y'all have been to any major salad bars lately, because probably not, because you live in Washington. Now, we've been open for a long time, but this is a picture from New York. What do you do with a salad bar there? Well, you sell candy and microwave fondue and cookies. Now, for the first 17 years as Madam Chair, President said, I was Director of Investor Relations with Trade the New York Stock Exchange. So I was in New York 1, 2, 3, 4 times a month sometimes for 17 years, starting in 97. And then one of the neat things about New York City were these buffets. Well, it was a little tiny grocery store, about a third the size of a normal convenience store, but it had everything from water to candy to bananas to canned goods to beer to this food. They also had a cold section. I've been addicted to the $6 per pound avocado halves soaked in Italian dressing with crushed red pepper over the top. Do that at home sometime. It's delicious. You can't do this anymore. Last trip to New York, there's no more. They reinvented. And this is what's going on in the demand for real estate. They now sell alcohol. Same thing. Y'all see this. I'm willing to bet, and Rob Sargent, don't raise your hand on this one, but I'm willing to bet that many of you drank more alcohol in the last 12 months than you did in any 12 months in college. Because we stayed at home and a lot of people stayed happy. In fact, we invented new drinks, the quarantini. Now, I'm not a martini drinker. I haven't had one of these, but gin and emergency, which says to me someone had a lot of gin. They didn't have anything to mix with it. Nah, that's not for me. And this next one, I haven't drank it either, but when you see this tonight or this week, when you talk to your kids or grandkids, you can tell them, you know why there's a shortage of Capri Sun, because adults are drinking it now. Kelly, thanks for laughing on that one. I love that. Now, all right. A year ago, the 1st of April, because we did staycations, we stayed at home. We didn't, in the good old days, you take your kids to a resort and get the heated pool, or for y'all, or for us, in the pool that was cooled down in Houston, Texas, or whatever. Those were all sold out by the 1st of April last year. So I love these people. That's ingenious. Take the boat, take out the seats, fill it full of water, hook up a pump and put it on a deck, and you got a pool in the kids' backyard. Oh, so let's get the brass tacks. Let's talk about what's going on out there. Jobs are everything. And you talk about it. Every time I talk to our people at Stewart Title in Seattle, one of the things that you guys have done, y'all have done, is you've done well in jobs. Now, I want you to look at this. And what I want you to do is I want you to take your finger and put it right over here on the trough at 2010. All right? And just look to the left. So in the Great Recession, that's the trough, the Great Recession 2010, we went from 138 million jobs to 130 million jobs. We lost 8 million. Now, I want you to take your finger from 2010 and draw it straight across. Y'all realize that in 40 days last year, 10 days in March and 30 days, some days in April, we lost 22.4 million jobs. We lost essentially every job created since the Great Recession 10 years ago. Now, that's 14.7% of all job losses. There'll be a quiz, so take a look at that one. Now, we brought back 14 million of those. We're still short 8.4 million. And I'm going to tell you this up front. Those 8.4 million jobs are not coming back because we don't need them anymore. I'm sitting here in a hotel, like I said, in Anchorage. And you check in the hotel, not this week. I've been in multiple cities already. But you check into a hotel on a Monday, if you leave on Friday, they're not going to clean your room, which means they don't need as many housekeeping staff. And they only have the restaurants, instead of open like 24 hours a day or, you know, from 5 to midnight, they're open, they're open from 5:30 to 10 or 9, and that's it. Those jobs aren't coming back. You can see we're ways to go. Now, each year, the Tax Foundation, they're a not-for-profit out of Washington, D.C., they do a big study on business tax friendliness in every state in the country. They look at corporate income tax, personal income tax in the state, retail sales tax, unemployment tax, property tax. Good news is you're 16th best in the country. That's good. Bad news is Oregon's a little better, but I don't know if that's bad at all. Best place in the country, and by the way, the low tax rates don't help them. That's Wyoming. South Dakota, the second best. It does help them. South Dakota had the best GDP growth from third to fourth quarter last year. 9.9%, I think, somewhere around there, almost 10%. Third best out here in Alaska now, their economy is horrible. Fourth best, Florida is booming. I'll show you that in a second. Now, the worst in the country, New Jersey. Oh, who's surprised? Come on, guys. Garden State, I've driven through it. No, I'm not buying that one. Second, California, and you are still seeing the influx of Californians. We've talked about those trends that are just accelerated. Third worst, New York. Fourth, Connecticut. Fifth, Minnesota, and it just goes on from there. But Florida's a big winner. Now, United Van Lines, and this impacts every line of commercial business and housing too, owned or occupied housing. This is where United Van Lines took more people out of the state than any other state last year. There's no surprise here. New Jersey, we already talked about that. New York, Illinois, Connecticut, California. Got to tell you about Kansas. When I was in a graduate school for my master's degree at Texas A&M, we had this is the 70s, and you talk about political incorrectness, and nobody knew what that was then. I had a professor, Dr. Pat Wooten, renowned professor. In fact, I wished he was still alive. He showed up every day for class in a Stetson hat. Now, summertime, straw Stetson, wintertime, felt Stetson, a lit cigar, and the cigar stayed lit the entire lecture. Smoking in the classroom. I mean, some of y'all remember this stuff. And whenever he took the cigar out of his mouth, you knew that was an exam question. We had a kid from Kansas, and he was always telling the class what a great place Kansas was. And finally, one day, Dr. Wooten pulled the cigar out of his mouth. He said, "Son, you do realize the only reason Kansas exists is to hold the rest of the earth together at that location." And I thought that's a good description of that. North Dakota may fit there too. Here's the top inbound states. Now, okay, top 10. Okay, you're not there. Yeah, okay, well, these are great states. I mean, Florida's ninth best. Here's the top 25 inbound cities that United Van Lines move more people to. You're 19th best out of 25. I told you how hot Florida was. 8 of the top 25 cities are in Florida that people move to. And very fortunately, it's been 3 years since they've had a major hurricane. I live in Houston. One of the concerns we have are hurricanes. Now, I want to talk to you in this next 3 series of slides. They're all a little bit different, so you have to understand what we're doing up front. What this does, it looks at state job loss from February a year ago to April a year ago. That's that 40 days, last 10 days of March, and some days of all the days of April that we lost those jobs. Michigan lost, well, let's round it to 24%. Let's round that to 1 out of 4 jobs. Utah, they lost 1 out of 12 jobs. Y'all, you're in the lowest 1/3 loss of jobs, which is pretty amazing when you realize that we had Boeing issues and everything else like on the MAX airplane. This next one looks at those lost jobs from February last year to April. What percent have we brought back? And on the top left-hand corner, look at Idaho and Utah. They not only brought back all the jobs they lost, they added jobs. Washington, you guys shut down, and it shows. It shows. I mean, it shows. Let me tell you how bad it was. Last year, the week after Thanksgiving, I went up to give a run through Washington and Oregon and what have you. And I typically stay at the DoubleTree at SeaTac. Why? Because I get there late at night, and they've got a a free shuttle, and across the parking lot's a Taco Bell. Don't forget the year of the tacos, folks. That's very important in my lifetime. And last year when I was there in December, my normal $250 a night room was quoted at $72 a night, and I took it. And then the day before I got there, they shut down the DoubleTree, and we had to stay at the Hilton. And there were 14 of us that night in the hotel. Wow. Wow. Amazing. This one shows the latest 12 months, February last year to February this year. Of course, Idaho, Utah, the only two states to add jobs on a 12-month basis. You're improving. You're only down 6%. And now, I have to say this, kind of like Texas has the dual headwinds, the pandemic and cheap energy. You have the dual headwinds of the pandemic and Boeing, because Boeing is such an integral part of the economy. In fact, I say it can be 1% of total GDP in the U.S. Now, here's total jobs. And what I want you to do is the same thing we did a minute ago. I want you to take your finger and put it on 2010 and draw it across. Whoa. Unlike the U.S., you didn't lose all the jobs added since the Great Recession. In fact, you only lost 12.1%. The U.S. lost 12.7%. You've only recovered half of those jobs. But folks, the simple fact you lost fewer, even with Boeing issues, speaks well for the Seattle, Tacoma, Bellevue MSA. This one is what we call it super sector. The super sector is the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Here's the major jobs. And I'm going to move this guy. I got to move this one just so you see what I'm doing here. All right. So this is going to look that box on the right-hand side, lost to trough. That's a percentage of total jobs. Well, let's just do this. All right. In construction, we lost 17.8% of all jobs. We've since recovered 118%, which means we have 4,100 more construction jobs in Seattle, SeaTac area, than we had before the pandemic started. That's pretty amazing. This next one, big loser, there's no one surprised here. We lost 42% of all leisure and hospitality jobs. We only brought 20.7% back because you closed down. It was 67,400 fewer jobs now than you had in February a year ago. This one's kind of unique, manufacturing, and this one hurts. The reason this hurts is those are, unlike leisure jobs, which are leisure hospitality, which are bartenders and wait staff and servers and housekeepers predominantly, not exclusively. Manufacturing's high-paying jobs. You're 26,900 jobs short. And I'm going to be honest with y'all is if we raise corporate income taxes, that will reduce more. Because if you raise corporate income taxes, if you're a globally competitive company, you're going to build stuff elsewhere. Just saying that up front. This is kind of unique. Now, information, if you look at the 2019, it was 6.3% of all jobs. That's kind of the middle columns there, just the left of the box. It's now 6.9%. We lost 0.3%, but we've added 4,600 additional jobs. That's because Google and all the other stuff we're utilizing for information, and it takes high value, high educated individuals, high contribution individuals to run that type of stuff. One of the big winners. And then the last one I want to look at is trade, transportation, utilities. You brought back 89.2% of those. A lot of that trade, though, is now e-commerce instead of the storefront you used to walk in. And you all know this better than I do. Tell me your tenants aren't paying their bills or that have already shuttered. And we'll talk about that. Now, home sales in the nation, the only reason I say that to commercial people, so goes rooftop, so goes demand for commercial real estate. We're that black line, top right-hand corner. We sold more homes last year than any time in 14 years. That green bar up and down, highest price we ever paid. SeaTac, we haven't sold more homes than the last 14 years. We do have the highest price in history, and that's part of one of the reasons that you can't sell as many homes because affordability is, for decades, has been an issue. And I will say this to you, Now, I live in Houston, Texas, and I'm not going to tell you how to run your community. You wouldn't want to live in mine, and I don't want to live in yours. That's the way it is. It used to. Y'all need to realize this. I was born in Seattle back in 1954 in an Air Force base. My dad was in the Air Force during the Korean conflict, so to speak. But things are different now. And you may think your homeless situation is everything great. I'm just the guy from the outside saying, got a lot of cities I can go to. I need to go there. I'm just saying that up front to you. That is not a judgment from me. That's just a personal preference. I do believe that we haven't done nearly enough for homeless because I truly believe it's a mental issue and drug and alcohol issue. And I don't think we've addressed that. I'll be upfront on that. If you want to spend some money, I think we can do a lot more for that on those aspects, not just giving them money. This is what surprised us in housing sales last year. And then you've seen this in your communities. Normally in downturns, luxury anything doesn't sell. Expensive dinners, great resorts, high-end houses, high-end cars. Just the opposite happened last year. While we sold more homes than any time, in 14 years, we sold more $1 million plus homes this February. In fact, almost double from a year ago, February. And that's because people were spending their time at home. And we saw across this country, we saw a large number of people that upgraded their apartments during the pandemic saying, hey, if I'm going to be in this apartment, I may as well be in a nice one. It just wasn't housing or apartments. We did this. Look at this one. This is new car sales last year down 15% from 2019. Used car sales down 6.25%. But total loans on new cars and leases signed was 3.5% greater, even though we sold that many fewer, which means we bought good stuff. Well, if you tried to park at SeaTac Airport, you'll see that good stuff in the airport because you can't park next to them because they're so big. You know what I'm talking about. We bought big, good stuff. So energy prices, and we're going to talk way too much about energy because energy is going to impact the demand for commercial real estate. You're going to have to live with me on this one. Good news for y'all that are not involved in energy production. Now, I have to say this up front. Best energy production in the world, hydros. We'll never build another one. Why? Because every time you build a new dam, you either kill an endangered species or create a new one. We're going to cut a couple dams, I think, in the Pacific Northwest in the next 10 years. But let's talk oil and gas and what have you. Guys, cheap energy, except for people who live in oil and gas producing areas, makes everyone better. You spend less on gasoline, diesel fuel, plane tickets. Talk about plane tickets. First week in March, last week in February, I'm typically in Southwest Florida. 2 years ago, that ticket cost me $680. Flew from Houston to Charlotte or Miami or wherever it was into Fort Myers. This year, it was a $184 ticket because fuel costs were so low. Now, they're gone up, and if you're going to buy a ticket, you need to buy all the tickets you want right now for this next year. So I'm not kidding you because fuel prices are going up. Look what they've done since January. Look what gasoline has done. But cheap energy leaves money in people's pockets. And you have to understand this pandemic, it was a tale of two worlds. It incredibly destroyed low-income people because they lost their jobs. Leisure and hospitality, not at high income. Most of us kept our jobs. And we're actually better off financially because we had no place to spend our money. Guys, this is, you talk about unfair impact to the people who could afford it the least. They got hit the worst. And I do believe that. Now, I'm going to use oil and gas only as an example why I don't think all those jobs are in any industry ever going to come back. Now, information, yes, everything else. So imagine if this were your business and this is oil prices. Can you imagine, and that's your revenues. Can you imagine your revenues? When look at the first 22 months going over to 07, where, think about that. We triple, we go down 60% in less than 23 months. How do you do business like this? So first of all, I want to talk to y'all about drilling rigs. And the reason I say this is there's less than 2% of all vehicles in the U.S. that are EVs. So oil and gas is still critical to most of us. Look at 2014, strong. And this is just the states listed on the top, the majority of states. 2014, you come up, we have 1,250 drilling rigs in this. I want to show you how businesses adapted when their prices go down. Because you're in a business that your revenues went down, it was the same thing. Demand for everything ceased, except all industrial properties, some apartments. Look at 2014, like I say, 1,250. 2020, what's the average? 500, 250. So it's anywhere from a third to a fifth of what it was in 2014. But look at this. This will blow you away. In 2014, the oil and gas industry produced about 8.8 million barrels of oil per day. In 2020, remember we had like a third to a fifth the number of drilling rigs. We produced 28.7% more, almost 30% more. Wow. We saw our rig count drop anywhere from a third to only a fifth of what it was. And we produced 30% more oil, 28.7%. Prices, they dropped from 93 bucks and change to 39 and change. Prices dropped 58%. I'm rounding that to 60%. But the number of jobs, even though we were producing 30% more oil, we did it with 40% fewer people. I guarantee you every business in the country is doing the same thing today, except housing, but they're coming up. Housing will come up when refis go away, lenders go away, some of them. All right, so we need to learn how to do more with less. Now, one of my friends sent me this picture. This is, all right, ladies, I know you don't get this. Men, this is your wish list of perfection. When I travel, if I could put everything in one bottle, 13 in one, conditioner, shampoo, body wash, toothpaste, mouthwash, y'all get it. You can read that as well as I can. All right. What was amazing, and then this is why I tell you it's a tale of two cities. It devastated our lower income people, but it really benefited some of our wealthier people because they made more money. Look at Walmart. And think what happened here. Corporate America got rich and Main Street America got put out of business. And that's a true statement, I do believe. But look what our savings rate did. In fact, let me stretch this out. We were going along 6, 7, 8% savings for all those years. Our savings rate last April was 33.7%, which means not everyone lost their jobs because that's aggregate, including the people that lost their jobs and pulled savings out. Ended up the year almost 15%. This one will get you. We know that we had 22.4 million people lose their jobs. We know that there's 8.4 million still unemployed. We also know that the average credit card balance from 2019 to 2020 for every age group demographic cohort went down. When I was in Fairbanks yesterday, I talked to 3 young millennials that still kept their jobs. Says, what did you do with your money last year? And all 3 of them paid off their credit card debt. Wow. You know what that does? Money in their pockets improves their credit scores. It's kind of like the person that gets buried in their suit, all dressed up, no place to go. And that's what we saw. This is up in the New England states. Think about how we changed. People in New England, you can't drive to the pub. You got to walk in the wintertime. That pub has been closed since a year ago, March, and it went bankrupt in last July. So one of the neighbors donated their driveway as the pub site. And one of my friends that goes there, he says, he says, a new habit, it's going to stick, like you said. We're drinking twice as much, paying half as much. We're staying there. And by the way, Kelly, you ladies know that you could go inside and drink and not have to sit outside to do that. Y'all get that one. Commercial says, okay, I know it took a long time to get here. We're going to spend a lot on commercial. And aren't you glad I was wrong in Q3 last year? Because Q3, when we got that minus 50-some%, I said Q4 is going to be worse. Oh, and by the way, if y'all heard my presentation last month, these are the latest update numbers from Real Capital Analytics. We were only down 9.4% in Q4 last year compared to the year before that. And let me tell you why. And the why is because not distress sales. We didn't sell much distress. I think the why is that people are, first of all, if you have money, and we saw the savings rate go up, if you put it in your bank or your credit union, you might get 1% per year. No. In fact, The inflation rate this past month was 0.6%. That's 7.2% per year, assuming that we're continuing. That 1% means you're losing 6% plus of your money. That's dumb. People don't want to spend the stock market. We're going to talk about the stock market in a minute. It's scary to me. And when I say scary, and remember, I'm a stock market guy, PhD in finance, minor in statistics, and investor relations for 17 years for a Fortune 1000 company. I think some of those valuations are just, well, stupid. I'll put that up front. Now, the first quarter of this year down 41.8%. That's really preliminary. Is Real Capital Analytics and RCA gets more data, that'll go up and up and up. Here's apartment sales, just to show you that. I don't know how many of y'all deal with apartments. Guys, plus 6.7% in Q4 last year compared to the year before, highest ever. Here's Seattle. Okay, you were down 56% in Q3, 51% in Q4. You were up 41% in Q1 preliminary, and that'll grow, but that's based on an incredibly bad Q1 the year before. That's a fair statement on that one. I want to show you this one. We're going to go down to my property types. And this, like, once again, the latest data available. All right. So to me, seniors housing is just such a limited market. I don't know if any of y'all specialize in that, but you can see your sales last year up 245%. We do know this. The seniors market last year had a occupancy rate of 80.7%, 80.7, the lowest in history. One of my friends I talked to a couple months ago said that runs assisted care facilities. He said we have the double whammy of a lot of our current tenants died from COVID. And a lot of their would have been current tenants were scared to death to come in because of COVID. And that's got to change. Y'all did really well here year over year. Let's talk industrial. My big winner, when I say that, everything you didn't buy from a storefront, you bought from an industrial building. Amazon, whoever it was, even the mom and pop local delivery services. You can see Q4 came in at plus 9.3% year over year. That's pretty amazing after a couple of quarters down 72%. Apartments, I'm kind of surprised at that here in your market in Seattle. Down 62% year over year and down 62% in Q4. Hotels, nobody's surprised here. In fact, in a minute, I'll show you a couple of tweets about they're converting hotels to anything they can do it but hotels. Oh, you gotta love this one. Normally in Anchorage at the Hilton, I'm paying like $280 a night. I think I'm getting a $71 rate here too right now. There's just no demand for hotels. This one's kind of amazing. Offices down 60% year over year. I'm surprised Q4 was that strong. We don't need as many offices, folks. Y'all are going to have to agree with this. And then lastly, retail down 73%. We're always going to need some retail. In fact, I think retail is going to break down to a couple different situations. High-end, high-touch, high-service boutiques, great demand. Big box, low-cost provider. I'm talking Home Depot and Lowe's. At Costco, I see that happen. In between, I think a lot of it heads elsewhere. So let's talk cap rates. Again, the latest numbers. Remember, a cap rate's just a measure of risk. High cap rates means high risk, which means you pay less. Low cap rates mean low risk, which means you pay more. It's simple as that. That's all cap rates are. You know this better than I do. Here's cap rates. And this is the U.S. and Seattle, again, RCA data. Notice that you have consistently a lower cap rate in the U.S., which means overall, investors consider your Seattle market a whole lot lower risk than the country as a whole. Now, one of the major questions I've been asked, notice your cap rates went up a little bit. In the U.S., they went down, they kind of stabilized, but they didn't go up. How come cap rates, when things get risky, didn't go down? So we got to answer that differently. So we're going to use the capital asset pricing model. Some of you may have had finance. Many of you probably did. All that does, it says on a stock, what it is, we got the risk-free rate, and the more risk it has, the greater the risk, the less you pay for it. Same is true with real estate. But you got to look at the risk-free rate to begin with. Look at the blue in the lower left-hand corner. Those are the latest 10-year treasury rates. That's our risk-free rate for commercial real estate. In fact, go back to August of 2020, that red line on the bottom, our 10-year treasury yielded 0.52% in the first week in August. Guys, it's 3 times that now, plus. So risks have changed dramatically. In fact, I want to tell you my biggest concern about commercial real estate. What's the worst thing that happened to commercial real estate? Stagflation. Stagnant economy and increasing costs on everything, increasing insurance costs, elevator maintenance, landscaping, all that stuff goes on. Stagflation means a stagnant economy means reduced demand for real estate. Inflation means everything costs more and you got to maintain your buildings. That's the worst thing that happened to commercial real estate. That is my biggest concern for commercial real estate over and above the individual property types. So this one, let's look at where risk is. That orange line, that's the risky rate. That's the cap rate. The green line, that's the 10-year treasury rate. That's the risk-free rate. A lot of people say, well, just do the difference between the two. That's not the appropriate measure, but it's a start. Here's the difference between the two. And the good news is we can see risk coming down on the right-hand side. So commercial real estate is considered less risky today. The bad news is it's still a lot higher than it's been in the past. That's not good news. Here's the proper measure. It's not just the difference between the two, the spread. It's the spread divided by the risk-free rate. And you can see how risky real estate was at the end of last year, third quarter last year. We didn't know what was going to happen. We had no idea if anyone would ever pay a rent again on a commercial structure. We had no idea, for those of us that own apartments like I do, if you can't evict the person that's renting your apartment because they're not paying their rent because they don't have money to pay your rent because it's COVID based, what's your apartment worth? You still have to pay your mortgage. You still have to pay your insurance. You still have to pay your property taxes and management. But look how much risk has come down. Now, I want to point out that our risk right now is the highest it's been still, other than the peak, since 2012. And what happened in 2012? Well, remember in 2009, Obamacare, Affordable Care Act passed, but they didn't figure out how to fund it till 2012. And in that period, we didn't know what the capital gains rate would be. We didn't know what the depreciation schedule would be. We didn't know if you could think about this one. We didn't know if you could do 1031s. And after we knew that, it went down. And we're still kind of at that same stage. Leisure and hospitality, this is total jobs, leisure and hospitality. And that when I tell you it's a hardest hit sector, just take a look at this. They lost half all their jobs in April last year. They came back. You can see that little peak there kind of in October, and then they went down after October. Here's why they went down. Think about this. And I am not talking about Florida or Tennessee or Texas. I'm talking about New York, right? And Illinois, in Massachusetts, in New Jersey, in Washington, and California, that you couldn't eat inside a restaurant. In fact, in California, in New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, you were not allowed to eat inside a restaurant until the weekend of the Valentine's Day this year. But last summer, we got to go outside and eat in New York and what have you. And it was fun because you could go out and look. That fun ceased in November. If that infrared space heater didn't melt the snow off your table, game, set, match, I'd give. And that's where we're at right now. Restaurants. I don't know how many of y'all deal with restaurants. And it was, I mean, you talk about tragic, the number of great, and I love local restaurants, mom and pops, hole in the walls. That's where I try to eat when I'm there. Guys, National Restaurant Association, this is one of my tweets. Follow me on Twitter, like Kelly was talking. National Restaurant Association, 100,000 restaurants have closed temporarily or permanently, and 40%, this is the second, third week of December when they're surveyed, said that they thought if they didn't get some stimulus between then and this spring, they'd be out of business. Good news is there's stimulus in the 1.9 trillion. Bad news is it's very difficult to get. E-commerce sales. They went up, as we saw, they were already going up. They spiked in Q2, they went down, but they went down a lot higher price. That's a lot less retail we need right there. Office space. What are we going to do with all this office? Now I live in Houston. Y'all's office is a little different than ours. We were 26% vacant in offices before the pandemic, guys, before the pandemic. I think we're going to convert a lot of office space. And I think housing's one of the best ways to go. You have a shortage of housing in your city. This is one of the sales. This is one of my tweets again, DRTCJ, 66,000 square foot, 4-story office building, Alexandria, Virginia. Just sold 1 block from the waterfront, great views, 54-unit condo coming up. We're going to see more and more and more of this. I don't know how many of y'all do low-income housing, tax credit housing. You know, you think about that Section 8 housing. You're going to be great the next couple of years because President Biden, his main push. I will say this: then Vice President Biden, now President Biden, campaigned saying we need to take care of the less fortunate and tax the rich. He's doing exactly what he said he was going to do. So first thing is they're expanding the voucher system. So a lot of people are able to move to better apartments with a voucher from the federal government. They're also kind of doing moral suasion to make you take that voucher. We're going to see coming down the pipe, we'll find out this next week as part of the infrastructure plan, low-income housing tax credits, but those take years to build, let's be honest. Well, actually, for me in Houston, they don't take years to build, but remember, I live in the largest city in America that has no planning or zoning. Think about that. Well, 2 things we all agree, whether you like President Biden or don't like him, I don't care as long as you voted. If you didn't vote, you're not allowed to say. But everyone's going to agree with this. Our country is better than tolerating any discrimination of any kind. We should not allow discrimination whatsoever. I do want to comment about this, and I'm talking to Seattle here, but I'm not talking to Seattle. I thought it was great your community said a minimum wage. I have no problem with that. I do have a problem when they say we need a federal minimum wage, and here's my problem. It costs different to live in every city in the country. $15 an hour. Well, by the way, I will say this. I don't know how any household lives on $15 per hour because I don't think that's enough, but that's just me. On the other hand, if that's what your skill set says you're worth, that's all you're worth. But that said, the Congressional Budget Office study notes that a $15 per hour minimum wage will lift 900,000 people out of poverty. Bravo, that's great. You're going to improve those lives. It'll also eliminate 1.4 million jobs, folks. We go to any fast food restaurant in Seattle because you're the first in the country. If you see counter staff, realize they're not going to be there long. I want to talk about the corporate tax rate. Now, we're currently 21%. President Biden, and he campaigned on this, so don't be surprised. He wants to raise it to 28%. Will it happen? We don't know yet. But at 21%, we rank 19th best, according to the Tax Foundation, out of the 36 developed countries. If you're 19th best, you can compete manufacturing-wise. If you go to 28%, we're 33rd best. I remember that means you're 4th worst. You can't compete. And if you're a global manufacturer, to be competitive in a global environment, you will not build that stuff in the U.S. I will tell you that up front. And this is a big concern I have, increasing the corporate tax rate, that it will eliminate some of our manufacturing jobs. And remember this for your region, the importance about a lot of manufacturing jobs is you don't need a college education or college loans to make a great living in your lifetime, because the skill sets you're developed from, assistantships and what have you. Guys, this may go away, and that's hurtful. Here's the one that's we don't know yet. Now, remember, I told you President Biden, then Vice President Biden, campaigned on tax the rich and help the poor. I believe he has a softer heart than any president we've seen since Jimmy Carter. Fair enough. He told us he was going to do this. He wants to, for the top earners, he wants to repeal the tax cut. That will take the top individual tax rate to 39.6%. We also, if you make a lot of money, you pay the 3.8% Affordable Care Act tax, the Obamacare tax, as they call it. And he campaigned on this, eliminate 1031s, no more like-kind exchanges, and no more favorable capital gains rate for anyone who makes more than $400,000 a year. And I guarantee if you sell any major commercial building, your income spikes above $400,000. So we're currently paying 20% capital gains plus a 3.8%, which means we're going to go from 23.8% to potentially 43.4%. We don't know this yet. This is the unknown. The unknown is risk. What's that mean, y'all? Well, first of all, that means that you're going to sell a lot fewer properties. Because if I pay a higher transaction fee when I sell it, I'm going to sell it less frequently. Oh, and if I can't do 1031s, and I've personally done 1031s, I'm going to keep them a lot longer. And that will reduce your income. And my income at a title insurance company, and we own a 1031 company. Y'all get this. Now, if you believe in what President Biden says, that we need to tax the rich, hey, get on board. But understand, when your revenues go down, there's a reason for that. Now, I'm going to talk about the stock market, and we're going to use Tesla example. We're not talking about Tesla's cars. I will say this up front. I think Tesla builds the most innovative vehicle that's ever been built in my lifetime. Do I own one? No. Why? I live in Texas. Last Wednesday, I drove from Houston to Fredericksburg, Texas. My dad's 89-year-old ranchers. It's a four and a half hour drive. I spent 8 hours there. We went into town. I took him lunch and what have you. And then when I came back, I drove back 4 hours. You can't do that with Tesla. I couldn't have done that trip. I'm an ICE guy, internal combustion engine. That's fair enough. We'll talk about global warming in a minute, because I do believe in global warming. But Tesla last year, and the reason I'm talking about stock market insanity is not the company, it's what shareholders are paying for the stock. It's not the firms, it's what shareholders believe they're worth. Tesla last year sold less than 500,000 vehicles, almost 500,000. There were 70 million vehicles sold in the world. Fair enough. So they got 0.7% market share. But on the 31st of December last year, if you took the closing price of stock times the number of shares outstanding, in other words, if you bought every share that day at that closing price, the company was worth $669 billion. They sold less than 500,000 cars. The same market cap the same day combined of Volkswagen, Toyota, Daimler, GM, BMW, Honda, Ford, and Fiat, all those firms together were less valuable than Tesla. And all those firms together sell more EVs than Tesla does. How about that? That's insanity. Here's my forecast of the stock market. And it's not about any individual stock. Some stocks are going to go up, some will go down. I truly believe that sometime in the next 30 months, the stock market drops between 20% and 30% value. That's just the index overall. So let's talk about what it's going to cost to live in the future. I mean, we all agree we need to leave this world a better place than we found it. Do I believe in global warming? Yes, I do. Do I believe it's man-caused? No, I don't. Why? Well, for 4 million years, the Earth we've seen 4 ice ages or 5 ice ages melt, and man wasn't around. So what caused those? Latest research from Australia says that the tilt of the Earth's axis over time is causing that. And I believe that. Do I believe that carbon dioxide caused by man's caused it? I don't, because we've seen it all those millennia in the past. So let's talk about the Green New Deal, but no emotions. It's going to be all physics and science and economics. Fair enough. Oh, and by the way, perfect energy source, I agree, it's electricity, and it's hydro. It's the cheapest form of electrical generation there is. And we already told you we're not going to make any new hydro dams. We're going to break a couple of them because of endangered species. So let's talk about the physics of the next 2 renewables where we're pushing to go in. One of them is wind. And when I say the physics, this guy, you can see his name here. He was a German physicist. The Betz limit, he coined this in 1919. About 99% of all physicists still believe it's true. All wind is kinetic energy. And Betz said if you had perfect materials and perfect design, you could capture 59.3% maximum. We're currently capturing 45%. We don't have perfect materials, even though it's carbon fiber. We don't have perfect design. I'll show you in a minute on that one. So unlike our computers, think about when we used to get a 100-fold increase in computer capacity every 3 years. That's not happening here. We have a potential forever maximum of about a third, 33%. So let's talk about solar panels. And by the way, I'll show you a picture of my property with solar panels. Kelly, you were talking about St. John earlier. I remember when we came in at Amy. Shockley-Kaiser, two US physicists, 1961, they came out with the Shockley-Kaiser limit. All that says is there's only so many photons from the sun that fall on any surface area, whether it's a square meter or square foot. The way a solar panel works is a photon hits it and it kicks off electron. The electron then flows down, becomes electricity energy. Now, Shockley-Kaiser said the maximum we'll ever get out of a single-sided solar panel, single surface, is 34%. We're currently at 26%. Now, there are double surface ones now, but that second surface can't be the same type of material. It's got to be one of the rare earth ones. And remember, under most current energy costs, the single surface panel doesn't pay for itself without subsidies. And when the other one's like up to 100-fold increase in cost, it certainly doesn't work. So we have a potential about a 32% gain in solar panels. So if you want electricity, and we want electricity, because remember, I live in Houston, and y'all saw the Snowmageddon, Freeze-mageddon we had last month. We had 4 days in my house at 13 degrees with no electricity, no heat, and you don't want that when you live in Houston, Texas. Now, you might be used to it up here, but we're not used to that in Texas. Got to invest in electricity. So let's do three. And first one, I want to say this one. If we want to increase energy production, I personally want to do it all with natural gas. Why? Natural gas has less than half the carbon dioxide emissions of any other fossil fuel. In fact, if we took every coal-fired plant in the US, you don't have to tear them down, you use their cooling towers, but just fire those boilers and turbines with natural gas, you would exceed the Paris Accords targets by a factor of 4 times. So I like natural gas. Natural gas also, nuclear reactors, they just run. Coal plants, they just run. Demand goes up and down. Wind turbines, they run when the wind spins. That's it. Solar panels only run when the sun shines. Natural gas, 24/7, so to speak. But if you took $1 million and drilled a well, let's say it's natural gas, on average, in the next 30 years, that well of natural gas will produce 320 million kilowatt hours of electricity, according to Credit Suisse. It's not my numbers. You spend that same $1 million in wind turbines, current design, and remember that only increase 33% in efficiency on the new ones in the future, assuming we can get that. We don't have that yet. You can do 55 million kilowatt hours of electricity. Guys, you realize that wind's 6 times more expensive than natural gas. And if you do solar, it's 40 million, it's 8 times more expensive. I'm going to ask you this. What happens if your energy costs go up a factor of 6 to 8 times to your lifestyle and your economy? Now, you can say, okay, well, we got problems with wind too. I mean, you got to realize this. Wind peaks in early evening. That's because as the sun sets, it's cool on one side and hot on the other, convection currents blow. Solar only works when the sun shines. So I want you to appreciate when God made a barrel of oil, how much energy there is in that. Barrel of oil, 42 gallons, weighs 300 pounds. Today it's worth about 60 bucks. You can buy a steel tank to store it, whether it's gasoline or diesel fuel, for 20 bucks. If you want to store the same amount of energy in lithium-ion batteries, the same batteries that Tesla uses, then it's going to be 20,000 pounds, over 10 tons of batteries, compared to 300 pounds of oil or gasoline or diesel fuel. And those batteries would cost you over $200,000. Which one do you want to store in cost-wise? Oh, and remember this, we all have our iPhones and our iPads and all this good stuff. My computer I'm on right now, they all have lithium-ion batteries. And realize that to get enough lithium just to make 1 pound of lithium-ion batteries, you got to move between 50 and 100 pounds of earth. So if you want to make enough batteries to store 1 barrel equivalent of oil energy, you're going to have to move between 500 and 1,000 tons of earth. Guys, all that earth we're moving at those lithium mines is fossil fuel driven. You're going to, one of the statements I read from the Manhattan Institute, they stated you'd have to drive some cars, EVs, about 60,000 miles on a completely renewable energy just to offset the amount of carbon dioxide released to make batteries. Oh, and if I've been in the Gigafactory in Reno, I'll be there next week again. It's owned by Tesla. By the way, side light on this one, all the batteries in the Gigafactory are made by Panasonic. Oh, and they're little AA type batteries. In fact, if you've ever seen a Tesla wreck, when it's been split open, it's jillions of these little batteries. It's kind of amazing. But if you took every battery that the Reno Gigafactory produced for a year, you could store enough electricity to run the US, for 3 minutes. If you wanted to run the US for 2 days, it would take 1,000 years, that factory. Oh, and this is a humorous slide. I'm sure, I don't know if that's a setup deal, but someone had a good sense of humor. How you take a Tesla across country and you don't have to stop to charge. Well, there you go. You better laugh. Oh, and I got to show you this one. We talk about wind turbines, and you don't realize that wind turbines have a high instant of burning. Think about how much torque on those blades. That's why we don't have the perfect material yet. When their transmission, unlike a jet engine, which spins at high RPMs real nice, these things have to be converted to spin a German. You look at the fire falling off this thing, and yes, it started a local fire. Well, I tweet the RTCGI blog. Oh, this reminds me of the pandemic. We didn't realize we had all the tools we needed. We have consumer-facing and customer-facing websites. We have DocuSign, remote authorization, all that kind of stuff. These guys need to pick up the whole that board, but they got one. Well, where are we at now in this pandemic? Watch this. Here's where we're at right now. We are right here. We survived, but we still got a battle, guys. We're not there yet, folks. It's getting better without question. Enough of that. Let's go back to the year of the taco. El Arroyo. I had tacos there a couple weeks ago in Austin, Texas. Dear taco trucks, please consider cruising the neighborhood like ice cream trucks. Here's my favorite taco truck, so to speak, in St. John, the Virgin Islands. Now, St. John's unique in that it's U.S. possession. You don't need a passport to get there. Almost 70% of St. John's a national park. It'll never be built, though. There's not a stoplight on the entire island. Now, in the main town, I'll show you a picture in a minute, is a great restaurant called the Lime Inn. It's old, and their specialty is Caribbean char-grilled lobster. Would that make a great taco right now? A little hatch New Mexico sauce and a wedge of lime over a tortilla. They opened this thing on the other side of the island, the Lime Out. It's their taco truck, their taco barge. Notice the solar panels. It makes sense there. Electricity costs are 52 cents per kilowatt hour. Your average cost in the state of Washington is 10.02 cents per kilowatt hour. It makes no sense. It makes sense at 52 cents, right? They only serve tacos. I'll show you that. They also serve, well, drinks. In fact, if you swim out there, they won't serve you because their specialty drinks they're a chili infused blue agave tequila. You would make it there and you would never make it home and you wouldn't care. Here's their tacos. If you haven't had lunch yet, you got to go have a shrimp taco or a fish taco of any kind. I mean, any kind of taco. Oh, and here's St. John. See that little peninsula out there? I own one of those units. In fact, if you go to the top left-hand corner, the one on the right with the solar panel, that's my place. But 52 cents per kilowatt hour electricity, it makes sense. I took that picture with my iPhone. So who's got some questions and comments, and we'll go from there. And I went over a little bit and I apologize.
Thank you, Ted. Question, so if we see gas prices going up, what's going to happen with interest rates?
Well, interest rates are going up. In fact, as I told you, my biggest concern about commercial real estate is stagflation. It's inflation with a stagnant economy. It's a reduced demand for real estate, which we're seeing in retail and office with increasing costs. I want you to name me one thing that cost you less today than a year ago. Look what gasoline's done since January of this year. It's over $1 a gallon increase. That's inflationary. And that means more money out of your pocket and less you can spend on everything else.
How long do you think that's going to last?
Oh, these rising costs? Here's the dilemma we have. Tell me if they're going to pass the $2.25 trillion stimulus plan. By the way, infrastructure plan. And let's be honest, both political parties lie to us. I've had enough of Democrats, Republicans, both for the last 30 years. All I want to do is get elected and put their agenda in front of you. And I don't agree with either of them. I'll put that up front on me. But if you pass that that current infrastructure plan, I guarantee you're going to have massive inflation. One of my tweets was pretty amazing. That I got to read this thing. It's not my information, it's someone else's. 53% of millennials and Gen Zs that got the $1,400 check plan to spend it on buying stock, which means they didn't need a stimulus, which means that's inflationary. They got money in their pocket burning a hole in it to go buy something right now. So the more the government spends on stimulus. Now, that said, let me do this other one. If you're one of those 8.4 million people unemployed or those restaurants that may go out of business in a couple of months, $1,400 didn't even give you oxygen for a minute. You needed $14,000 just to exist for another week or two. Our stimulus shouldn't have been across the board. It should have been much more targeted and riveted. And there are a large number of people that still need stimulus.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ted. This webinar will be available online at CCIM-WA.com. Please check that out here shortly. I want to thank all of our attendees for attending. I thank you so much as well to our sponsors. And thank you, Ted, for your wonderful education and bringing a little color to our day here as we move forward. Please get involved with CCIM. Visit our website, CCIM-WA.com. for membership information, sponsorship information, as well as committees. We'd love to see you in this virtual world. You are very welcome to join us. All right, thank you everyone, and have a great day. Take care.